Well, New South Wales Farmers has told a parliamentary inquiry that Australia has made no progress towards improving food security over the past decade and risks soaring grocery prices if systemic issues are not addressed. Joining me to discuss this and a number of other issues facing our farmers is New South Wales Farmers economist Brendan O'Keefe. Brendan, thanks so much for your time today. What are some of the big issues in food security that need addressing?
Thanks for having me, Christy. First of all, I'd like to say that we really welcome this inquiry by the federal government. It's been 10 years since we had a national food plan, and it kind of just sat on the shelf and didn't really recognise the value of our food production as a minimum condition for food security. So some of the issues we'd like to see addressing include input security and input costs. So if we don't have the inputs available to produce our food, then we can't produce the food in a productive manner. So we would like fertiliser, fuel, better reliability as well for those inputs. Supply chains also are really important. So we saw during the floods last year that fruit and vegetables couldn't make it to the shelves. So having more efficient and more reliant rail and road would be really helpful.
And so,
environmental, yes, you go.
no, I was just going to say, how do we fix these issues and improve that food security?
There's quite a number of things we could do. So really targeted investments in input availability. So for example, the government has helped to build a facility in WA to produce urea because we're very reliant on importing those inputs. So similar investments on the East Coast would be really helpful. Also finding out where those weak points in the supply chain are to ensure that food can make it to the shelves during periods of floods or other perverse weather events. Competition is another really important area. So naturally, there are market power imbalances which persist in agricultural supply chains. So the livestock production market is the least concentrated of any market in Australia, while the retail market is the most concentrated in any market. So naturally, the retailers are a real strong point there, and our producers are price takers. So action could be taken there. The ACCC has made a number of recommendations from their perishable agricultural goods inquiry in 2020, such as making stronger contract terms law and also making the food and grocery code mandatory. And also providing really simple incentives for farmers to be more environmentally sustainable. We already have some of the most efficient and sustainable production in the world, which is largely being done just by farmers increasing their efficiency. But where there's more public good for being environmentally sustainable, then there should be those incentives available to farmers.
And grocery prices are already sky high. How bad could it get if these issues aren't addressed?
Yeah, so food inflation was at 7.9% in the latest ABS figures. That compares to border inflation at 5.6%. So food inflation is still a real big issue and putting a lot of cost of living pressures on households in Australia. The dairy industry is a really good case study. So prior to 2000, the industry was highly regulated. Industry assistance was at 51%, and currently industry assistance is at only 2%. We have the least assisted agricultural industry in the world. And so then post-2000, there was this deregulation that came in. Producers became a lot more efficient because they had to. They were exposed to broader world prices. So they invested in things like robotic dairies, which brought milk prices down a lot, increased production a lot, and led to better outcomes for consumers. But then there was an inquiry into the dairy industry in 2016 by the ACCC, which found that retailers, they exercise market power by getting really low wholesale prices from processors. Processors have the option of diversifying and differentiating their production into things like cheese, whereas dairy farmers don't really have an option. They just have to take the price they're given. And so they're exposed to more risk than processors and retailers. They have less information available, and their prices are lower than the prices they're receiving are lower than they should be. And so eventually this has led to exit from the industry. And so in the next year, we're predicting milk production available to manufacturers to be less than 6 billion litres, which is the lowest level it's been since 1990. So it shows that if farmers are in anti-competitive markets, then they have to leave the industry, and it leads to lower production. And now dairy prices have been up 15% in the past year. So it shows that if we don't look after that market and make it a fair market, then it can have really poor long-term outcomes for consumers
All
as
right,
well.
Brendan, thank you so much for your time today. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate your insight.